What's going on, everybody? Yeah, just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I want to talk about what to do when maybe like a tragic event happens, or some unexpected loss, or the unexpected threat of loss starts creeping into your space, and you do everything that you can do in the physical. But then, it's a waiting game, and it's ultimately then in God's hands whether that person either recovers or doesn't recover. And a lot of the maybe the fears that start to come up. This is something I'm dealing with at the moment. Feeling a lot of maybe sadness or grief, and fear of loss. And trying to process these differently. We have the old man ways, where you almost just get depressed and you start blaming yourself, blaming God, blaming, whatever, or just like, living in what if land, or, feeling like, if this was real, then this would be automatically resolved and they'd get better, or all these types of things that come up, and looking at them differently, ultimately looking with the Holy Spirit, and reinterpreting what's happening. Because a big part of like these thoughts, these fears, and these concerns that are popping up in the moment, have to do with your interpretation of what's happening. If I want to align to what's God say about this. One of the things I like to do, when faced with like all of a sudden, this just rocked my little bubble. How do I make sense of that? For one, go within, hand it over to the Holy Spirit and ask for understanding and wisdom and what to do next, because ultimately you're not alone, and we don't got to figure this thing out by ourselves. A lot of the answers are already written. When you go into the Bible, one of the things I like to do when facing difficult situations, or fears or unexpected things, is to get into the Bible and read the promises of God. And I just from experience at this point, it's like so many times they've just proven themselves to be true. And looking towards Jesus, and instead of reacting out of fear, which is like the old man, it's like, okay, well, I'm faced with this event, and just the way it makes me feel, it feels very important. It feels very traumatic. It feels very there's a lot of emotions attached. There's a lot of things going on, but instead of getting lost in this is a very complex issue, bringing it back to, it's like, okay, I'm still on this process. This is the process of life. Why am I sitting here judging, and why am I assuming the worst case is going to happen? Why am I not assuming they're just going to get better? Why am I not assuming that they will heal? Why is my first thought they're going to die, or they're going to continuously get worse? There's going to be a lot of pain. There's going to be a lot of torment. Why is those the first thought? And realizing that, just like when you focus on your breathing, it's like you didn't realize in the past 10 seconds ago that you were conscious of breathing. God was just breathing through you. And just like that, how through our own willpower, through our own thoughts, it's like getting out of the way of like, I have like some sort of a like a superpower, that I just need to focus on, and actually letting go of any sense of power, and realizing that the only power is God, and the same power that was breathing for me, pumping my heart, is the same power that is trying to heal everything that I experience. The entire perception of reality. That God's in control of it, and that the really at any point anything could happen, and with that, trusting in God's ability to handle this problem. The Bible talks about how we only need to be still, and that God will fight these battles for us. And I like to get into these promises of God. I'll put them in the description. Like this one is Proverbs 3:5-6. trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. It's like, okay, it's like I don't got to reinvent the wheel here. Just get into the God's promises and go inward to understand what that actually means. What does that mean to not lean on my own understanding? I feel like, and this is just my interpretation. It's like, you got the ego mind, you have the old man's understanding, that sees an event. Maybe somebody gets sick, or maybe some sort of tragic accident happens, and you're playing the waiting game, not knowing if they're going to get better or not. You have the old man's fears and worries and concerns that stem on the idea that you're separate from God, that God is, somewhere out there, and that you're alone, and letting go of those thoughts as they emerge in the moment. So much of this has to do with what's happening right now inside of your own being. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you concerned about? Because we got to start addressing these fears, and just ask, how would Jesus interpret this? One of the examples in the Bible, is Lazarus. He'd been dead. I think the Bible was talking like a week or something like that. And one of the shortest, I think it is the shortest verse in the Bible, is Jesus wept, which it was in, basically had to do with Lazarus being dead, and all his friends and everything were just upset and crying and disturbed and everything else. And it's been like a week that he's just been sitting there rotting, and it's just like, ay. And how did Jesus handle that? Did he accept that his friend is just dead? No, he went in there, and and Jesus, also gave us kind of a roadmap. It wasn't, he said many times, it wasn't him that was doing the work; it was God within him that did it. Taking himself out of like, I'm a super being, that has some magical powers that you don't have. Jesus led the way and was showing. It's like, of my own self, I can do nothing, but it was his faith. Jesus is like the pioneer of faith in our roadmap and example to what's possible and what's beyond possible, because, what Jesus was saying is all things are possible, and that we could do anything that he did. You can look that up in the Bible for yourself. And so when it comes to like sickness, loss, grief, suffering, and all that kind of stuff, a lot of times it feels like the old man wants to just say, oh, that's just the way it is. Death is just part of life, and, we live, we die, we have different ways that we die. But, Jesus was saying that death is an illusion, and he proved that, because he's alive now inside of you. And you can connect with him now. And part of like dealing with these problems and these, these things that we perceive as problems, has to do with, feeling separate from that other person. And death is almost like the ultimate separation device. And letting go of a lot of these separation devices, and trying to see more of like the process of life, the oneness. If you're looking at the mirror and you see tragedy and death and strife and all these sadness, again, start looking within and just start trusting in God. That God's ways are already bringing healing, that God's ways are bringing love to the situation, that instead of fear being in the situation, that it's somehow there's love in this. It's like, I don't understand what I'm seeing, but I'm going to let that thought, let these emotions, I'm not going to suppress them, I'm not going to repress them, I'm not going to try to avoid them, escape them, but from now till whenever, I'm going to process it with God. How is this working out? How is this going to how is this going to resolve itself? Dealing with these emotions, for one, realizing you aren't emotion, you aren't sadness, you aren't grief, you aren't faithless. You're not any of these accusations, and you are feeling the way you're feeling. And what does that mean? Well, what does it mean? I mean, we are almost defining these things as we're going along, but you know, as we kind of process and trust in the promises that God told us are true. That's the biggest thing. It is like we don't have to come up with the answer. We don't have to invent something. It's all already there for us. Through that interconnection, we get led to the right maybe person that can help, or the right maybe verse in the Bible to maybe get some new understanding, or through synchronicity or anything. You start to see how everything is working for a purpose, and even if it doesn't make sense, or if you're feeling grief or sadness, processing these in a different way, seeing things in a new light, trying to just really get it into your being that life is eternal. It's like one of the main promises I've in my own walk over and over and over again. Life is eternal, death is an illusion. And it's like, what does that mean when I'm looking outwards? I see a bunch of death. Well, start changing those assumptions and those beliefs, and letting go of a lot of these concepts of separateness, because we are all one. Everything is one thing. In not understanding that it's okay, because we have a teacher, the Holy Spirit. It comforts us, it teaches us, and ultimately kind of lets you just, I don't know, release these things, these feelings, sadness. Sit with it. Don't hide. Try to hide it. Let experience it. Fully experience it. Don't try to just bury it. Feel it. Don't judge it. Don't condemn yourself either for feeling these certain ways. If you're angry, whatever. Any of these types of emotions, that can start to kind of be a result of feeling sadness, grief, dealing and processing with loss, or perceived loss, or worry of loss. When ultimately it boils down to it's in God's hands. So knowing that, how am I going to process the right now? Am I going to sit in worry and fear and concern? Am I going to let doubt creep in? Am I going to abandon everything that I thought because of some tragedy? Or am I going to allow this to build faith in myself and others? Am I going to see the bigger picture? Am I going to see the love in this? Am I going to let this draw me closer to my Creator? The old man wants to, separate, feel the fear, and push away everything. Am I going to let that, am I going to push away God? Am I going to push away love? Am I going to push away these different emotions? Or am I going to change? Am I going to change my mindset? Right now is when you do that. Am I going to thank God? Am I going to let this take away my gratitude today? Am I going to let this take away the gratitude I felt just yesterday? Or am I going to use this to become even more grateful, to grow in a relationship with God that's more, more and more close, taking everything that comes as okay, well, this to my old man mind, seems like it's a horrible, tragic thing, and I'm in a lot of fear, and I have a lot of concern over what's going to happen. Well, is that concern is getting in your mind about him? Is that actually going to do anything? If we're all connected, it could make it worse. It could be making resistance, and prevent the, prevent in your own being, love, joy, and peace, and creating a stumbling block. So I just want to share that with you guys. Like I said, I'm processing this thing myself. I woke up this morning to find my dog ate a bunch of poison, and did everything possible to help resolve that. But now it's just the waiting game, and even so, my dog is like 16. I love that dog, and definitely appreciate your prayers and everything for that. But also, just wanted to share that with you guys too, because a lot of people experience loss, especially with what's happening in the world. It's one of those things. We can all kind of process these things together, and I wanted to share that with you guys. So with that being said, I'd like to wrap these things up with a quote unquote random Bible verse. Nothing's random. God's 100% in control of literally everything and speaks to us in the moment. I just want to give God a chance to speak to you, who's ever listening now. Let's see what God's got to say. Isaiah 1:16-17. Wash you, make you clean, put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes. Cease to do evil, learn to do well, seek judgment, relieve the oppressed, judge the fatherless, plead for the widow. There you go. And with that being said, I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing. Appreciate your attention. It's like the most valuable thing. And I appreciate your support and the kind thoughts and everything else. And so, and the kind words. And other than that, thanks for listening. And until the next now, have a good rest of your day, your now, and God bless.